The world of the Ahura is a kingdom sculpted from the very essence of the horizon, a place where the distinction between the physical earth and the spiritual ether is as thin as the veil of a dream. In the beginning, the cosmos was a theater of perfect balance, overseen by the twin deities of the Zoroastrian tradition. Ormuzd, the spirit of light and wisdom, breathed his essence into the world to create beauty and order. His brother, Ahriman, the spirit of darkness and decay, represented the inevitable entropy that follows all creation. For millennia, this duality was the heartbeat of the universe, keeping the stars in their courses. The land we traverse was the physical anchor for this balance, a sanctuary built by the Ahura, a race of mortals who dedicated their existence to maintaining the great seal that kept Ahriman's hunger contained within the roots of the world. The city of the Ahura was not constructed with the heavy hands of empire. It was coaxed out of the cliffs and canyons. The architects understood the harmonics of the earth, carving temples into the living rock so that the wind would whistle through the corridors in musical intervals. The architecture of this realm is powered by the blue ether, a liquid manifestation of Ormuzd's grace that flows through the city like lifeblood. This energy source allowed the Ahura to build gravity-defying bridges and irrigation systems that turned the desert into a lush paradise. However, the lore tells us that this light is not infinite. It requires the constant devotion and spiritual purity of the Ahura people to remain potent. When the balance was disturbed, the corruption began to leak from the deep, lightless hollows beneath the Temple of the Sun. This is not mere grime, but a living, sentient shadow, an oily substance that coats the world in a shimmering, dark iridescence. It moves with a hypnotic fluidity, climbing the walls of palaces and choking the life from sacred trees. To look upon it is to feel the weight of Ahriman's despair, a spiritual gravity that seeks to pull the soul into a permanent slumber. Within the shadow, there is a return to primordial chaos, a silence that precedes the first word of creation. The central figure of this restoration is Elika, the last daughter of the Ahura and the living embodiment of the city's hope. Her magic is the light of Ormuzd, a power that flows from her fingertips like liquid starlight. She is paired with a wanderer, a man who represents the human element, skeptical and grounded. Together, they represent the integration of the lofty spirit and the practical hand. Every step they take is a defiance of the darkness. Throughout the kingdom, they seek the fertile grounds, natural nodes of power where the earth's energy is most concentrated. Now, these grounds are pits of black slime guarded by the corrupted, tragic figures twisted into monsters by Ahriman's false promises. The process of healing a fertile ground is the most significant act in this world's history. It requires Elika to channel her life force into the earth, transforming the black oil into emerald grass and dead wood into blossoms. This is the Great Restoration, a reminder that the blueprint of perfection remains hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be called back into being. The desert surrounding the city, known as the ever-changing path, serves as a teacher of detachment. The Ahura believed that the shifting dunes showed that everything built by man would eventually be smoothed over by the wind. To navigate this landscape, one must learn to trust intuition over sight. The wind itself is considered a sacred messenger, a universal signal to be still and present. As the sun sets, the sand turns a deep purple, and the stars emerge as the eyes of Ormuzd, watching over the world. The weight of the world's history is not a burden in this place, but a foundation. You are part of the lineage of those who watch the light and wait for the dawn. The story of the Ahura is unfolding with a slow, deliberate grace, inviting you to witness the transition from the heavy shadows of the past to the luminous potential of the future. The first gate has been passed, and the darkness is held at a distance as we prepare to descend further into the heart of the ancients. The history of the Ahura is further enriched by the Covenant of the Magi, an ancient pact that outlined the responsibilities of the temple guardians. They were not just warriors. They were astral cartographers who mapped the soul's journey through the various planes of existence. The lore suggests that the City of Light was designed to be a mirror of the celestial heavens, with each district corresponding to a specific constellation. When the corruption spread, it didn't just physically damage the city. It darkened the stars, severing the connection between the mortals and the divine. This is why Elika's mission is so vital. She is not just cleaning the streets, she is realigning the heavens. The various power plates you encounter are the physical remnants of this celestial alignment, each one tuned to a different frequency of Ormuzd's light. To use them is to harmonize with the fundamental vibrations of the universe. The Morning King, Elika's father, is the tragic catalyst for the world's current state. His grief over Elika's initial death was the crack in the door that Ahriman needed. The lore posits that Ahriman cannot create, he can only subvert and distort. He took the king's love and twisted it into a selfish, destructive force. This highlights a core theme of the Ahura lore, that even the most beautiful emotions can become tools of darkness if they are not balanced by wisdom and a sense of duty to the greater good. The prince, entering this world by accident, acts as the wild card in this cosmic game. He is not bound by the traditions or the grief of the Ahura, allowing him to see paths that Elika cannot. His presence is a reminder that sometimes the light needs the perspective of the outsider to truly see the shadows for what they are. As we conclude this first movement through the history and mechanics of the world, we find ourselves standing at the edge of the sunken city. The air here is damp and heavy with the scent of ancient salt and forgotten dreams. Below us, the ruins of a once great civilization shimmer with a ghostly, blue light, struggling to breathe beneath the weight of the black ink. The journey ahead will take us into the memories of those who fell and into the laboratories of those who tried to play God. But for now, let the steady rhythm of the desert wind be your anchor. The path is long, but the destination is written in the stars. The light of Ormuzd is patient, and the seeds of the new world are already beginning to stir beneath the sand, waiting for the touch of the last Ahura to bring them into the brilliance of the day. The royal palace of the Ahura stands as a monumental achievement of verticality, a sprawling complex of marble and gold built into the sheer cliffs of the City of Light. Once the seat of the Ahura kings, it served as the primary bastion for the guardians of the Great Seal. The architecture is designed around the concept of the four royal chambers: the sunken city, the heavens, the royal gardens, and the City of Light itself. Each district was overseen by a member of the royal court who eventually succumbed to the corruption. The lore of the palace is inextricably tied to the tragedy of the alchemist, a brilliant scientist of the Ahura who sought immortality and accidentally facilitated the dark god's influence. His laboratory, once a place of discovery, became the epicenter of decay, where stone began to bleed the black ichor of the void. The architecture utilizes power plates, stone conduits etched with sigils of Ormuzd. When activated by the Ahura bloodline, these allow for traversal of the vertical landscape, a necessity for a people who lived among the clouds. Within the sunken city, we find the fate of the concubine, a woman of the court whose desire for influence led her to strike a bargain with the shadow. Her domain is a labyrinth of submerged courtyards where water has been turned into a deadly trap. The Ahura used these waters for purification, believing the clarity of the pool reflected the soul. Now the reflections are twisted, showing visitors their deepest fears. This subversion of virtue is the hallmark of Ahriman's strategy. The royal gardens illustrate this fall further. Once a paradise sustained by blue ether, they were home to the breath of Ormuzd, flora that filtered the desert air. Under the corrupted hunter, a former prince who traded his soul for predatory instinct, the gardens have become a nightmare of thorns. The history of the palace is defined by the Great Divide, when the Ahura began to lose faith. Records suggest that as generations passed, the cost of maintaining the seal, the constant sacrifice of life force, became unbearable. This fatigue allowed Ahriman to whisper to the desperate. The lore reveals that the king of the Ahura, Elika's father, finally broke the seal in a misguided attempt to resurrect his daughter. This act of paternal grief was the catalyst for the modern darkness, transforming the palace from a bastion of hope into a prison for the divine. The king's transformation into the Morning King represents the collapse of the old order. He haunts the throne room, a shell bound to the shadow he unleashed. The mechanical heart of the palace is the Great Mill, which harnessed canyon winds to power defenses. The Ahura believed the wind was the voice of spirits. Today, the mills grind only shadow, their gears groan under the weight of the corruption. The lore of the mills is tied to the warrior, a silent guardian who was once commander of the armies. He sought to protect his people through strength alone, rejecting the spiritual path. Ahriman exploited this pride, turning the warrior into a mindless titan of stone and iron who roams the industrial sectors, ensuring the light of the Sun Temple cannot reach the lower levels. Beyond the halls of state, the Tower of Ahriman looms as a dark reflection of the Temple of Light. Manifested from the earth as the seal weakened, it represents the physical encroachment of the void. Lore dictates this tower is fed by the despair of those trapped within. Every time a citizen gave up hope, the tower grew, its obsidian surfaces absorbing starlight. The interior is a non-Euclidean nightmare where physics are subservient to Ahriman's will. Time flows differently. Minutes feel like centuries, and the layout shifts to demoralize any who scale it. The struggle to reach the summit is a recurring theme in desert songs, symbolized as the test of resolve. The connection between the tower and the palace is a tether of dark energy, pulling the palace into the abyss. The architecture began to mimic the tower as corruption took hold, with jagged edges replacing the smooth curves of the original design. This architectural infection represents the shift from the nurturing philosophy of Ormuzd to the predatory nature of Ahriman. The Magi, high priests of the Ahura, were the keepers of the Chronicles of Light, scrolls predicting a chosen one who would bridge the gap between the mundane and divine. They lived in the observatory of the heavens, mapping stars to determine the strength of the seal. They could hear the music of the spheres, a harmony that provided the blueprint for the city. When the corruption arrived, the Magi were targeted first. Ahriman feared their wisdom, for they knew the secret name of the light. Many Magi chose to crystallize themselves in pure ether rather than be taken, becoming living statues that serve as beacons for Elika, providing the energy needed for her miracles. Furthermore, the machinery of the ancients suggests a technological advancement bordering on the miraculous. The Ahura used resonance rather than combustion. By striking tuning forks in the foundations, they manipulated gravity and matter. This resonance allowed the prince and Elika to perform their gravity-defying feats. Lore explains that the claws used by the prince were ancient tools of construction workers, designed to grip resonating surfaces. The synergy between the prince's prowess and Elika's power is the only way to navigate this environment because the palace is a dual entity, half stone, half spirit. Corruption has dampened these resonances, turning pathways into dead zones. Restoring a sector involves retuning the soul of the building to the frequency of Ormuzd. This is why the music shifts when a fertile ground is healed. It is the sound of the palace's heart beating again. The relationship between the people, their god, and their architecture creates a narrative where the environment is a character with its own history. As we move deeper, we see the palace is a living record of a civilization's peak and its tragic nadir. The corridors are long and the shadows patient, but the light still flickers in the dust. Every archway is a testament to the belief that light is truth, and the courtyards are designed to channel the setting sun. Within these walls, the prince learns that the desert was once the cradle of a wisdom so profound it could chain a god. The palace is a labyrinth of memory, where every fresco tells the story of the Ahura's rise and decline. To restore this place is to restore the dignity of the spirit. The echoes of the past are loud in empty halls, reminding us that empires are subject to the balance of the twins. The story of the palace is a father's love turned to poison, and a daughter's duty turned to destiny. The heavens, a breathtaking network of suspended platforms and crystalline towers floating high above the desert floor, represents the intellectual and spiritual apex of the Ahura civilization. This district was the domain of the alchemist, one of the 4 corrupted lieutenants and perhaps the most tragic figure in the kingdom's lore. Originally a brilliant philosopher-scientist, the alchemist was obsessed with the concept of the etheric spark, the fundamental energy that separated life from inert matter. His laboratories were built at this extreme altitude not just for the solitude, but to be closer to the celestial currents that power the Ahura's resonance technology. The architecture here is fragile and airy, utilizing light bridge technology where walkways of solidified photons span the terrifying gaps between floating spires. To the Ahura, the heavens were a physical manifestation of their aspiration toward divinity, a place where the weight of the world was left behind. However, under Ahriman's influence, these spires have become jagged, obsidian needles that pierce the sky, and the light bridges flicker with the unstable, dark energy of the corruption. The fall of the alchemist provides a chilling insight into how Ahriman exploits the virtues of the wise. The alchemist did not seek power for conquest. He sought it to conquer death itself. As he grew older, he feared that his vast knowledge would be lost to the quiet of the sands. Ahriman whispered to him through his experiments, promising a formula for eternal life that required a small catalyst of shadow energy. The alchemist, believing he could control the darkness through sheer intellect, allowed the corruption into his sanctum. The result was the utter subversion of his work. His life-extending elixirs became poisons, and his research into the soul led to the creation of the corrupted spore, a biological weapon that turns the living into mindless extensions of Ahriman's will. His physical form was twisted into a spindly, ethereal wraith that moves through the heavens like a cold draft. He represents the danger of knowledge without humility, a mind that sought to play God and ended up serving a demon. The lore of the heavens is also tied to the Great Orrery, a massive mechanical map of the cosmos that sits at the center of the district. This device was not just for observation. It was a steering mechanism for the City of Light. The Ahura believed that the planet was a ship sailing through a sea of stars, and the orrery allowed the Magi to align the kingdom's spiritual resonance with the movements of the planets. This alignment was crucial for maintaining the strength of the Great Seal. If the orrery fell out of sync, the seal would weaken. During his descent into madness, the alchemist sabotaged the orrery, locking its gears with solidified shadow. This act of sabotage is why the world currently feels off balance. The seasons are erratic, and the very gravity of the canyon is unstable. Restoring the heavens requires the prince and Elika to physically realign these massive brass rings, fighting against the alchemist's illusions while navigating platforms that shift according to the planetary cycles. Furthermore, the heavens contain the Archive of the Unwritten, a library where the Ahura kept records of their failed experiments. This archive serves as a repository for the shadow lore of the kingdom. It reveals that the Ahura were not the first to struggle with Ahriman. They were merely the latest in a cycle of guardians. The scrolls here suggest that the Dark God is not a person, but a natural force of entropy that can never be truly destroyed, only delayed. This revelation is a turning point for Elika, as she begins to understand that her struggle might be part of an eternal recurrence. The prince, ever the pragmatist, sees the archive as a collection of useless mutterings, yet it is here that he finds the blueprints for the aerial power plates. These plates, glowing with a brilliant yellow energy, allow Elika to grant the prince the power of flight, the ability to surf the winds of the upper atmosphere. This mechanic is a direct result of tapping into the residual resonance of the alchemist's earliest, purest inventions. The transition to the heavens also introduces the lore of the solar sails, massive sheets of enchanted silk that once caught the sun's rays to generate the blue ether. These sails are now tattered and black, flapping in the thin mountain air like the wings of a dying bird. They symbolize the loss of the city's power source. When a fertile ground is healed in this district, the solar sails suddenly catch the light, turning a brilliant, translucent gold. The energy surge is so powerful that it momentarily clears the clouds from the entire canyon, revealing the true scale of the ruined kingdom below. This moment of clarity is essential for the narrative, as it shows the characters exactly what is at stake. It isn't just a desert they are saving. It is a civilization that once reached for the stars and actually touched them. The beauty of the heavens, even in its corrupted state, is a reminder that the height of a fall is determined by the height of the preceding climb. Finally, we must consider the sanctum of the sun, the highest point in the heavens and the alchemist's private quarters. It is here that the final confrontation with the wraith occurs. The room is filled with jars of trapped starlight and bubbling vats of liquefied shadow. The lore tells us that the alchemist's last act as a human was to write a letter of apology to Ormuzd, but he was unable to finish it before the corruption took his hand. This unfinished letter remains on his desk, a haunting artifact of a man who knew he was losing himself but could not stop the momentum of his own curiosity. As the prince and Elika cleanse this final spire, the alchemist is released from his service to Ahriman, dissolving into a cloud of glowing particles that drift down toward the royal gardens. This act of mercy is the true victory in the heavens. It is the reclamation of a mind from the abyss. The sky above the City of Light turns a deep, hopeful azure, and the path to the next district becomes clear, illuminated by the restored orrery. The royal gardens of the Ahura once stood as a lush testament to the harmony between nature and etheric science, a tiered paradise that bridged the gap between the terrestrial city and the celestial heavens. In the era of Ormuzd's full grace, these gardens were fed by the waters of life, a spiritual irrigation system that flowed upward against gravity, nurturing plants that could bloom in the light of the moon. This district was not merely for aesthetic pleasure. It was the primary source of sustenance and medicinal herbs for the entire kingdom. The architecture here is organic, with structures woven from living whitewood trees and floors paved with emerald-flecked marble that stays cool even in the desert's peak heat. The lore of the gardens is shadowed by the presence of the hunter, a former prince of a neighboring realm who traded his soul to Ahriman for the ultimate thrill of the chase. Unlike the other corrupted lieutenants who were driven by science or grief, the hunter is a creature of pure predatory instinct. He views the entire kingdom as his personal hunting ground, and he has transformed the once peaceful groves into a labyrinth of lethal traps and shifting shadows. Under his influence, the beautiful flora of the Ahura has mutated into the vines of despair, black, thorny appendages that lash out at anything possessing a heartbeat. As we delve into the history of the hunter, we find a man who was once celebrated for his prowess and survival skills. Lore fragments scattered near the Garden of the Sun explain that he arrived at the City of Light as a diplomat, but his restless spirit could not handle the sedentary, peaceful life of the Ahura. He began to hunt the sacred gazelles of the temple, an act that was considered a grave sacrilege. When he was caught and banished to the outer wastes, Ahriman appeared to him in the form of a black panther, offering him a world where nothing could ever escape his reach. The hunter accepted, and his body was merged with the corruption, turning him into a lithe, shadowy figure that can melt into any wall or floor. His domain within the gardens is the Ever Feast, a central plaza where he lured his victims into elaborate games of cat and mouse. He does not kill for hunger, but for the satisfaction of breaking a victim's will. To the hunter, the prince is the ultimate quarry, a man who moves with an agility that rivals his own. This creates a psychological tension in the lore. The hunter is not just trying to stop the prince from healing the fertile grounds. He is savoring the process of tracking a worthy opponent through the ruined greenery. The centerpiece of the royal gardens is the clockwork greenhouse, a massive glass structure that regulated the seasons for the entire canyon. In its prime, the greenhouse used a series of enchanted mirrors to focus sunlight into a concentrated beam of life energy. The lore tells us that the Ahura could create eternal spring within this district, allowing them to grow crops that would normally take years in a matter of weeks. The hunter has smashed these mirrors, turning the focused light into beams of searing, corrupted heat that guard the pathway to the main fertile ground. To navigate this area, the prince must utilize the green power plates, which grant the ability to sprint across vertical surfaces with supernatural speed. This power is the residual energy of the sprint of the antelope, a blessing Ormuzd once gave to the garden's caretakers. The mechanical puzzles of the greenhouse are a reflection of the Ahura's belief that nature should be guided but never dominated. Each gear and lever is designed to mimic the growth of a vine or the opening of a petal. Within the deeper thickets, we find the Grotto of the First Seed, the place where the very first plant of the kingdom was supposedly planted by the hands of the Magi. This grotto is the most sacred spot in the gardens, and it is here that the hunter has established his primary lair. The lore suggests that the hunter is obsessed with destroying this seed, as its lingering purity is a constant irritant to his corrupted senses. He has buried it under layers of black ichor, yet it continues to pulse with a faint, green light that even Ahriman cannot fully extinguish. This seed represents the indomitable will of nature, the idea that life will always find a way to return, even after the harshest winter or the deepest corruption. When the prince and Elika finally confront the hunter here, the battle is not just a physical struggle but a clash of philosophies. The hunter represents the predatory nature of the void, while the prince and Elika represent the nurturing, protective force of the gardener. The healing of the grotto is a spectacular event, as the vines of despair are instantly replaced by white lilies and golden ivy, and the air is filled with the long-lost song of the desert nightingale. The lore of the royal gardens also touches upon the water kings, the minor spirits of the springs who served as the gardener's helpers. These spirits were the first to flee when the hunter arrived, taking refuge in the subterranean pipes beneath the city. Their absence is why the gardens became a wasteland. By restoring the fertile grounds, Elika is essentially calling these spirits back to their duty. As they return, the dry fountains begin to flow again, and the stagnant pools are cleared of the oily film of the corruption. This revitalization has a practical effect on the lore. The flowing water acts as a natural barrier against the spread of Ahriman's influence, creating brooks of peace that the shadows cannot cross. The prince learns that his physical strength is only part of the equation. He needs the environment to be his ally. The gardens teach the lesson of reciprocity. If you care for the land will care for you. Finally, we encounter the veranda of the fallen prince, a high overlook where the hunter used to watch the sunset before his total transformation. On this veranda, a stone tablet remains, etched with a poem the hunter wrote to his lost kingdom. It reveals a sliver of regret, a realization that in his quest for the ultimate hunt, he has become a trophy in Ahriman's collection. He is no longer the predator. He is the leashed hound of a much darker master. This adds a layer of pathos to the lore. Like the alchemist and the concubine, the hunter is a victim of his own unchecked desires. When he is defeated, he does not die with a scream of rage, but with a sigh of relief, his shadowy form dissolving into the very soil he once terrorized. The royal gardens are left in a state of quiet recovery, the new growth pushing through the cracked marble, symbolizing the start of a new era of balance. The path is now clear to move toward the industrial heart of the kingdom, where the final guardian awaits in the shadows of the forge. The City of Light, the industrial and residential heartbeat of the Ahura civilization, represents the bridge between the spiritual heights of the heavens and the practical foundations of the earth. This district was once a bustling metropolis of gleaming copper and white stone, where the rhythmic hum of the great mills created a constant symphony of progress. Unlike the ethereal palaces above, the City of Light was built to endure, featuring reinforced fortifications and massive defensive gates. The lore of this district is centered on the warrior, the most physically imposing of Ahriman's lieutenants. Originally the commander of the royal guard, the warrior was a man of iron discipline and absolute loyalty. His tragedy lies in his obsession with safety. He feared that the spiritual light of Ormuzd was too fragile a shield against the creeping shadow. He believed that only through impenetrable walls and a massive standing army could the kingdom survive. This fear made him the perfect target for Ahriman, who offered him the invincibility of the mountain in exchange for his soul. Now the warrior is a towering titan of stone and corrupted iron, his humanity completely encased in a monstrous, indestructible shell. The transformation of the City of Light into a dark, industrial prison is a direct reflection of the warrior's corrupted psyche. The streets are now clogged with the Shadow Forge, a network of corrupted machinery that churns out the black ink of Ahriman. The warrior does not use magic or illusions. He uses the sheer weight of his form to crush any resistance. His domain is the Tower of Strength, a massive silo where the city's weapons were once stored. The lore describes how the warrior, in his final days as a man, spent his time here obsessively reinforcing doors, even as the people he swore to protect were being consumed from within. He represents the paradox of the protector who becomes the oppressor. By focusing entirely on the physical defense of the kingdom, he neglected the spiritual health of its people, leaving them vulnerable to Ahriman's whispers. To the prince, the warrior is a mirror of what he might become. A man who relies solely on his sword and his strength, forgetting that the greatest battles are often fought in the heart. A key element of the lore in the City of Light is the Great Mill, an engineering marvel that harnessed the winds of the canyon to provide power to the entire kingdom. The Ahura saw the mill as a sacred engine, a device that turned the invisible breath of the world into tangible energy. Under the warrior's command, the mill was repurposed into a grist of the void, grinding the stones of the city into dust to feed the corruption. To progress, the prince must master the yellow power plates, which utilize the Gale of Ormuzd. This power allows him to be propelled through the air like a projectile, mimicking the speed of the winds that once drove the mills. This mechanic is more than just a traversal tool. It is a way for the prince to reclaim the element of air from the warrior's heavy, grounded influence. It highlights the thematic conflict of the district, the lightness of the spirit versus the crushing weight of the shadow. Deeper within the city lies the Martyrs Plaza, a site of great historical significance where the last stand of the Ahura soldiers took place. The lore tells of a final, desperate battle where the royal guard fought against the first waves of the corruption. It was during this battle that the warrior made his pact. Seeing his men falling one by one, he cried out for the strength to stop the tide, and Ahriman answered. The warrior didn't just gain strength, he became a literal wall. He stood at the gates for 3 days and nights, unmoving and unbreakable, but as the darkness filled his veins, he forgot who he was protecting. By the 4th day, he turned his blade on his own survivors. This plaza is now a desolate, oil-slicked arena where the prince must face the warrior in a series of grueling encounters. The warrior cannot be defeated by traditional weapons. He must be outmaneuvered and forced into the very machinery he once controlled. This battle is a test of agility over force, forcing the prince to use the environment itself as a weapon against the man who once mastered it. The City of Light also houses the refining chambers, where the Ahura once purified raw quartz into the crystalline batteries that powered their light bridges. These chambers are filled with a toxic, black fog that the prince and Elika must navigate with extreme caution. The lore mentions that these chambers were designed to be the cleanest part of the city, symbolizing the purity of the Ahura's intent. Now, they are the source of the breath of Ahriman, a miasma that drains the life force of any who linger too long. Healing the fertile grounds in these chambers causes a massive discharge of blue ether that sweeps through the city streets like a cleansing flood. The sight of the black fog being burned away by the radiant blue light is one of the most powerful visual cues of the restoration. It represents the reclamation of the city's industry, turning the tools of destruction back into the tools of creation. The gears begin to turn with a smooth, harmonic hum once more, and the Shadow Forge is silenced. Finally, we encounter the King's Gate, the massive portal that connects the City of Light to the Temple of the Sun. This gate was sealed by the warrior himself, who believed that by closing the path to the temple, he could protect the god Ormuzd from the darkness. It is a tragic irony of the lore. The warrior's last act of loyalty was what ultimately trapped the king and Elika inside the temple during the final collapse. As the prince and Elika cleanse the gate, they are not just opening a door, they are clearing the path to the final confrontation. The warrior, in his defeat, regains a moment of clarity. His stony exterior cracks, revealing a glimpse of the man who once stood as the shield of the world. He does not speak, but his final posture is one of a soldier standing at ease, his duty finally concluded. The City of Light is left in a state of silver twilight, the copper roofs reflecting the rising moon, ready to house a new generation of dreamers. The path to the temple is now open, and the true heart of the mystery awaits. The Temple of the Sun is the spiritual and physical anchor of the entire kingdom, a colossal structure of white marble and gold that sits directly atop the prison of Ahriman. This is the most sacred site in the lore of the Ahura, designed as a living seal that breathes with the rhythm of the cosmos. At its center grows the Tree of Life, whose incandescent roots are woven into the very fabric of the Great Seal. The architecture here is unlike anything else in the canyon. It is a space where geometry meets divinity, filled with circular halls that represent the infinite nature of Ormuzd. The lore of the temple is defined by the tragic figure of the mourning king, Elika's father. Once a man of profound wisdom and the high priest of the Ahura, his story is the ultimate cautionary tale regarding the danger of personal attachment in the face of divine duty. When Elika died in a tragic accident years prior, the king's grief became a gateway for Ahriman. The dark god whispered that the laws of life and death were merely suggestions that a true king could override. Driven by a love that had turned into an obsession, the king struck the final blow against the seal he was sworn to protect, trading the safety of the world for the life of his daughter. The interior of the temple is a masterpiece of symbolic design, featuring the Hall of the Seven Virtues, where the history of the Ahura's spiritual journey is depicted in massive, floor-to-ceiling frescoes. These paintings tell the story of the first Magi who descended into the dark to chain Ahriman using the 13 chains of light. The lore explains that the temple was built not to hide the darkness, but to transmute it. Every prayer uttered within these walls and every ritual performed by the priestesses was a way of reinforcing the seal with positive energy. When the mourning king betrayed his vows, the temple underwent a violent transformation. The white marble cracked, and the blood of Ahriman, the thick, black corruption, began to geyser from the floor, coating the sacred murals in a layer of oily filth. The temple is now a battlefield of the soul, where the residual light of the tree of life struggles to hold back the encroaching void. To explore the temple is to walk through the ruins of a father's mind, seeing the physical manifestation of his guilt and his desperate, lingering hope that he did the right thing. A central mystery of the temple lore is the secret of the seeds, the glowing orbs of light that the prince and Elika collect throughout their journey. These seeds are not mere currency. They are the fruit of the tree of life, the stored memories and potential of the Ahura civilization. The lore dictates that after the seal was broken, the tree of life shed its seeds across the kingdom as a fail-safe mechanism. By gathering them, the prince is effectively rebuilding the tree's strength piece by piece. Within the temple's sanctum of remembrance, these seeds are returned to the roots, allowing Elika to unlock the breath of Ormuzd, the various power plates that grant them supernatural abilities. This process highlights the theme of collective effort. The world cannot be saved by one person's strength alone, but by the accumulated light of an entire history. The mourning king, now a shadow of his former self, views these seeds as a threat. He haunts the corridors of the temple as a wraith-like guardian, attempting to stop the prince from completing the restoration because he knows that if the tree is fully healed, the price of his bargain with Ahriman will finally be called due. The lore also speaks of the Covenant of the Twins, the ancient agreement between Ormuzd and Ahriman that established the rules of their conflict. This covenant states that neither god can directly interfere in the world of mortals without a human catalyst. This is why Ahriman needed the king to break the seal, and why Ormuzd requires the prince and Elika to mend it. The temple serves as the neutral ground, where these cosmic forces meet. In the Chamber of Balance, situated deep beneath the roots of the tree, there is a scale that measures the weight of the light against the dark. The prince discovers that the scale has been tipped heavily toward the void. The battle within the temple is not just about swinging a sword. It is about restoring the weight of the light through acts of courage and sacrifice. The mourning king's presence in this chamber is a constant reminder of the weight of choice. He represents the choice to put oneself before the world, while Elika represents the choice to sacrifice oneself for the world. This ideological conflict is the true heart of the game's narrative. As the prince and Elika reach the apex of the sun, the highest balcony of the temple, they can see the entire kingdom stretched out below them. From this vantage point, the lore of the different districts, the heavens, the gardens, the city, and the palace, comes together as a single unified story. The temple is the lens through which the rest of the world is seen. If the temple is dark, the world is dark. The prince realizes that his journey was never about a lost donkey or a chest of gold. It was a pilgrimage to the center of existence. The air at the apex is thin and cold, but it carries the scent of the first morning, a reminder of the time before the shadow. The mourning king often stands here, looking out over the ruins of his kingdom, perhaps mourning not just his daughter, but the version of himself that was once honorable. He is a tragic figure because he is aware of his fall but is too far gone to stop it, bound by the chains of his own making to the dark god who granted his wish. Finally, we encounter the root of the world, the subterranean cavern where the tree of life's primary roots wrap around the physical prison of Ahriman. This is the most dangerous place in the lore, where the corruption is so thick it takes on a physical, crushing pressure. The roots themselves are glowing with a frantic, pulsing rhythm, like a heart under extreme stress. The lore tells us that the tree is dying, and its death would mean the permanent release of Ahriman. The prince must protect Elika as she performs the final rite of binding, a ritual that requires her to give up her own life force to revitalize the tree. This is the ultimate test of the prince's character. Will he allow the woman he has come to love to sacrifice herself for a world he barely knows? Or will he repeat the mistake of the mourning king and choose his own heart over the survival of the world? The Temple of the Sun is where the cycle of history reaches its breaking point, and the echoes of the past wait in silence to see if the new guardians have the strength to break the chains of grief. The Void of Ahriman is the final, agonizing destination of the journey, a realm of non-existence that exists in the interstitial spaces between the roots of the Tree of Life. This is not a physical place made of stone and mortar, but a psychological abyss where the laws of the material world are entirely suspended. The lore describes the void as the shadow of the first thought, the primordial darkness that existed before Ormuz spoke the universe into being. In this region, the prince and Elika are no longer fighting monsters of flesh and blood, but the manifestations of their own internal struggles. The environment is composed of memory shards, fragments of the kingdom's history that float in a sea of absolute blackness. These shards depict the faces of the fallen Ahura, the laughter of children in the markets, and the quiet prayers of the Magi, all being slowly dissolved by the entropy of Ahriman. To enter the void is to risk the total erasure of one's identity, as the darkness preys on the concept of the self. The lore emphasizes that only those with a shared heart, a bond of absolute trust between two souls, can navigate this emptiness without losing their sanity. The climax of the lore within the void centers on the final transformation of the mourning king into the vessel for Ahriman's physical manifestation. Having exhausted his own humanity, the king is consumed by the very power he sought to control, becoming a conduit for the dark god's rebirth. This encounter is the culmination of the theme of generational debt. The prince and Elika are not just fighting a villain. They are attempting to pay the spiritual cost of a father's mistake. The void echoes with the king's final, distorted thoughts, revealing that even at the end, he believed he was acting out of love. This creates a profound moral ambiguity in the narrative. The darkness is not fueled by pure evil, but by a love that refused to accept the natural cycle of loss. Ahriman's voice in the void is a collection of whispers that mimic the voices of the loved ones the prince and Elika have lost, attempting to lure them into a state of eternal stasis, where no more pain can be felt, but no more life can exist. The Great Seal itself is finally revealed in its true form within the heart of the void, not as a physical lock, but as a symphony of light that must be completed. The lore tells us that Ormuz did not defeat Ahriman through violence, but through the creation of a harmony so complex that the darkness could not find a rhythm to disrupt it. The prince and Elika's journey has been the act of relearning this harmony. The final battle is a rhythmic exchange of energy, where Elika's light acts as the melody and the prince's steel acts as the percussion. As they push deeper into the center of the void, they encounter the primal source, the point where the tree of life's energy is most concentrated. Here, the lore reaches its most poignant moment, the sacrifice of the last Ahura. Elika realizes that to truly bind Ahriman again, she must return the ether within her to the tree, effectively ending her second life to ensure the world's survival. This is the covenant of blood that the Magi hinted at in the ancient scrolls, that the light can only be preserved through a voluntary return to the earth. The aftermath of the battle in the void leads to the restoration of the horizon. As the darkness is pulled back into the roots, the void collapses, and the prince and Elika are cast back into the physical world. The temple of the sun is bathed in a light so pure it turns the desert sands into glass. The lore concludes with a moment of absolute silence, known as the hush of the new dawn. The corruption is gone, the lieutenants are released, and the kingdom is clean. However, the lore leaves us with a haunting final choice that mirrors the beginning of the tragedy. The prince, standing over Elika's lifeless body, is faced with the same temptation that destroyed the Morning King. He sees the 4 trees of light that act as the new anchors for the seal, and he knows that by cutting them down, he can reclaim the energy needed to bring Elika back once more. This final chapter of the lore is a meditation on the nature of choice and consequence. It asks whether humanity can ever truly break the cycle of grief, or if we are destined to repeat the mistakes of our ancestors for the sake of those we love. The story of the Ahura ends not with a victory, but with a question. The desert of the future lies before the prince, and the stars of Ormuzd shine down on a world that is once again beautiful, but fragile. The lore suggests that the true seal is not found in stone temples or ancient trees, but in the human capacity to let go. As the wind carries the scent of the first rain in 1,000 years, the legacy of the City of Light remains a testament to the heights we can reach and the depths to which we can fall. The journey through the sunken city, the heavens, the gardens, and the forge was a preparation for this single moment of decision. The cycle of the twin gods continues, and the desert waits for the next footstep to be pressed into its sands, marking the beginning of a story that has yet to be written. The light is patient, the dark is persistent, and the heart is the bridge between them both.